Congressman Lance Gooden, a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for being here. Your thoughts on where this is going?
Well, we'll know in about 2 hours if Hunter shows up or not. But, you know, you don't get to dictate the terms by which you testify in the U.S. House. We saw this happen in the January 6th committee hearings. You know, we wanted due process. We wanted things to go a certain way, but we were completely overlooked. The difference here, though, is the January 6th commission was totally not a legitimate proceeding. And some of the same people that I just saw in that segment who were saying that this is not the process by which we should go, these are the same folks that were criticizing folks like Steve Bannon, who didn't show up for their sham hearings. This is actually a real committee hearing, and it's difficult to watch Democrats sanctimoniously tell us Republicans that we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing. We couldn't get an impeachment inquiry vote for the Trump impeachment, his last one by Nancy Pelosi. If you recall, Republicans, myself included, sat here in this chair and said this is an illegitimate impeachment because we're not opening an impeachment inquiry. So I'm very happy that we're now to the point of opening this up formally with a vote. I was worried that we would go down this road without that vote, and I'm thankful that we will have that vote so the American people can see that Republicans follow the rule of law and that there is legitimacy to these proceedings.
And you're saying the Democrats did not do that. They just went ahead and impeached President Trump without an inquiry.
That's right. If you recall, Nancy Pelosi opened up the inquiry herself. And Republicans were saying, you know what, this is not the way it's done. We should have a full vote by the House. I was actually worried a few months ago that we weren't going to do this when Kevin McCarthy said he was going to open this himself. I didn't like that. I'm happy to see that we're actually going to open up this formal vote inquiry, and that the American people will see that we are a legitimate ruling party, that we actually can govern. And I also think it will bring teeth.
You think I
do. I had heard that it was going to be today or tomorrow before we leave town. I'm pretty confident we have the votes because this administration and Hunter Biden have been just laughed at us when we've asked for documents. If they'd turned over documents, if they'd actually cooperated, I don't know that we would have had the votes. But because they've basically given the committee the middle finger and the American people, we've got moderates on our side that are saying, yes, they'll vote for this.
Well, sources are telling Fox News that Hunter Biden is expected to testify today, that he is, in fact, planning to come. Meanwhile, this is all happening in the face of this new fight with President Biden over money to Ukraine. The president met with the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, yesterday, announcing another $200 million aid package. Biden claims Republicans' attempt to tie border policy to additional Ukraine aid is against democracy. Watch this.
Compromise is how democracy works. Holding Ukraine funding hostage in an attempt to force through an extreme Republican partisan agenda on the border is not how it works.
So what do you want to say to that, Congressman? It's not how it works.
Well, first of all, it's totally crazy that this administration and Democrats are not for securing our border, but they are for securing the Ukrainian border. And frankly, I don't believe him. I think deep down, this Democrat president, Joe Biden, actually wants some of this border security to pass because he knows the polling is so bad. And so I think that Democrats in the White House are prepared to perhaps make some compromises with Republicans because, frankly, I can't go back to my constituents and say, you know what, I voted to spend a lot of money in Ukraine, but we got nothing for it out the border. And when I go back home to my constituents, they say, Lance, the border situation is so bad, we'd be okay with just about anything if you guys would secure the border. So I think this president knows that. I suspect they'll come our way. If he truly cares about Ukraine, if this is something that is so important to him, and he can't tell the American people that he values securing our own southern border, then I don't know what we're dealing with here.
So you don't think
totally crazy.
So then you don't think the Republicans are going to blink? You're going to leave town without money going to Ukraine if there are no border changes?
If there is no security at our southern border, I'm not blinking. I will never support any funding for Ukraine that does not include major measures of security at our own southern border.
And what kind of specific policy changes do you want? I mean, Joe Biden walked into the Oval Office and reversed all of President Trump's border policies, including remaining in Mexico. Would that be enough? One policy going back to the Trump days? That would be enough.
That'd be a huge step. But we passed border security measures earlier in the House. Democrats say they're draconian and just heartless. I think that's crazy. I think what is heartless is to open up the southern border and let anyone and everyone come across our southern border and just be fanned out across the United States. You know, Remain in Mexico is a huge, huge issue. The White House knows that they're getting killed in the polls on this issue. There's no reason that the asylum system should be abused like it is. So that would be a huge first step. I trust Speaker Johnson to work with Joe Biden on this matter, and I think Speaker Johnson knows that Republicans are not going to bend on this matter unless we get some serious security at our southern border.
Yeah, I mean, so far, you know, they're calling it an extreme policy at the border, which is incredible to me. I mean, what seems extreme is to having all of these foreigners jump ahead of the line and come into America. 5 million people released into the country every day.
It's crazy. It's not just poor people from Mexico looking for a better life. You see these groups of Chinese immigrants. You know, there was the plot to assassinate President George W. Bush by Hezbollah terrorists.
Let me correct myself. It's 5,000 people being released into the country every day,
right,
which is what the Republicans said, 5,000 a day. But we just saw the other day there were 12,000 people who were apprehended at the border in one day. So you've got 12,000 people coming in a day, and now we're supposed to believe that it's 5,000 people being released every day? Is that a low number?
It probably is a low number. The point is we've had 6 to 7 to possibly 8 million people come across the southern border since Joe Biden took office. The American people are not going to reward him with a second term if this is not fixed. I don't believe they're going to reward him anyway. But this White House is starting to pick up on these poll numbers, which is why you're seeing comments out of the White House say that they might be open to working with Republicans. But frankly, time is running out. It's already December 13th, and they want something by the end of the year. We're set to leave town tomorrow. And unless you've got a really solid border security plan, I don't see us making it happen for Ukraine.
Unbelievable numbers. 5,000 people being released into the country every day. 8 million people having crossed on Joe Biden's watch. Congressman, thank you.